Xmodus Gaming here, and today we have Remnant 2, the sequel to the small budget title Remnant from the Ashes. Right off the bat, we are thrown into character creation, which is pretty robust and even offers different voices for your character. Then we are introduced to a small cast of characters, namely Clementine, who has some kind of special powers. In Remnant 2, you play a different character from the first game, so after being informed of the events of the first game, the leader of your group of survivors just teleports himself to another unknown world. And Clementine, the girl with special powers, gets sucked in too for unknown reasons. Being the game's main character, our hero jumps in too. With basically no direction for the story to go into, we are thrust into a procedurally generated open type area. I spent around 3 hours in this seemingly endless gray wasteland just killing monsters and trying to find my way around. I stumbled across some dungeons which all looked exactly like each other, had very similar enemies, and even had copied hallways, rooms, and monster placement. Now for a second, let's put aside the large procedurally generated open boring areas, and let's discuss the boss fights. Remnant 2's boss fights are definitely more varied than the first game's, although they don't exactly overcome the first game's flaws. Namely, the bosses themselves spawn a bunch of additional enemies that you have to fight in order to take down the boss, leading to most boss fights having very similar strategies. Speaking of the first game's problems, Remnant from the Ashes was criticized for not having a good enough economy to upgrade multiple weapons. That is no different here, as in Remnant 2 I used the two same rifles and two same pistols for my entire playthrough of 10 hours. Exactly the same amount of time it took me to beat the first game. And if I recall in the marketing, we were promised a bigger game with more worlds and more things to do. The developers of Remnant 2 did not deliver on any of that. After playing both games, I can honestly say the only improvement here in Remnant 2 are the varied boss fights. Take this puzzle-based boss fight as an example. There are many like it, but these new interesting boss fights are not enough to overcome the absolutely gameplay-breaking puzzle segments, where you are forced to look for some random book in a procedurally generated dungeon that vaguely gives you the elements necessary to defeat these puzzles. Upon finding this out, I did not waste my time at all trying to solve these puzzles and looked up the solutions online. So far, I've only had negative things to say about Remnant 2, but there are some redeeming features in Remnant 2. There's a wider selection of archetypes, your classes that you can choose from, and a wider amount of abilities actually available to you to use. A wider array of weapons and special abilities that can be slotted into them, a larger number of options given to you when in dialogue, and more varied boss design. With all that being said, actually playing the game with all these new additions and the stronger emphasis on procedural generation, I was actually bored. Defeating different bosses and overcoming different challenges, especially dialogue-based challenges, I did not feel rewarded. I felt quite annoyed actually. Feeling almost as if I've spent an hour trying to swat a fly, and when you finally get it, it's just another dead fly. If you are curious about Remnant from the Ashes or Remnant 2, I suggest you wait for a sale on the first game and give it a try. But don't expect too much, and don't expect to be able to replay the game and have fun. As for Remnant 2, I think it's completely passable. That's all I've got for this one. Tell me in the comments if you agree or disagree. Was Remnant 2 enough of a game to be a sequel to you, or did it feel like Remnant 1.5? Leave a like or a comment if you learned something or like what you've seen. Thank you. Have a good one.